Hello, class. I hope you enjoyed the previous lesson on the halflings, a people who, although small in stature, can be as fierce as giants. For today's lesson, we will speak of a people transformed by their wicked god into a force that may threaten all of Panathor. This lesson, we will speak of the Riftforged Orcs. Rather recently, class, there had been a rather large conflict within the Halpi Mountains, one I may go into more detail in the future. But for now, just know that the Abyssal Dwarves, while digging into the mountain's depths, had uncovered a rift in reality. A rift that contained a nexus of energies of unimaginable power. A nexus the Abyssal Dwarves had planned to use to, as is their nature, dominate the other races. A great battle was had within and without the Halpi Mountains, and through great sacrifice, the energies of the Nexus were buried once more. But before this could occur, these energies were felt all across the world, leaving it forever changed. One place of note where this change was particularly profound was in the Abyss, the domain of the Wicked Ones. At the height of the Nexus's power, its energies flowed into the Abyss, and Askan, leader of the Wicked Ones, felt its potential for destruction. He charged Garkhan, the Dark Blacksmith, to use its powers to create new horrors upon the world. And within his flesh forges in the Fourth Circle, Garkhan did just that, using the Nexus's energies and prime cuts of unfortunate souls to improve the design of what was already one of his greatest creations, the Orc. The orcs that birthed from these forges were much more muscular and broader of shoulder than the typical orc, with cracked skin that had a gray-green hue. And their minds were also quite different, for although they still possessed the innate ferocity known to their race, it was tempered by a cruel cunning and an innate martial prowess. But it was not just their bodies and minds that were reformed, but their very souls, for those souls were combined with the Nexus's energies, and had gained an affinity with them, manifesting as lightning that wreathed their bodies and lent strength to their sword arm. But perhaps the most important change, at least to Garkhan, was their loyalty. The common orc is a chaotic force of destruction, compelled to destroy all that is good and worship all of the wicked ones, although the amount of worship tends to change depending on whichever wicked one will aid them at the time. But the Riftforged Orcs were loyal only to Garkhan. They may acknowledge the other wicked ones, but Garkhan knows that if the need arises, he could easily call upon them to attack the forces of his fellows. As Garkhan toiled in his forges expanding the orc ranks, shackled souls worked without rest forging weapons and armor for Garkhan's new horde. They crafted powerful armor carved with the likenesses of leering abyssals, as well as brutal weapons such as heavy hammers and thick shields that were often jagged in design and spiked to ensure the most grievous of wounds. Once a significant number of orcs were formed, Garkhan knew it was time for them to be tested, and there was no place more ideal than the Abyss. Hordes of mindless demons, seeing these orcs as interlopers to their realm, began to attack, and Garkhan gave his permission for his orcs to fight back. And over many years and many campaigns, what it meant to be a Riftforged Orc began to take shape. The most obvious change was the effects of the Nexus's energies, first only manifesting as glowing eyes and flickering electrical energy when roused to battle. Soon their battle marches were preceded by black thunderclouds and coruscating lightning, the roar of thunder an omen of their opponent's impending doom. The greatest change, however, was their method of war. Unlike the hordes of orcs that had plagued the world for millennia, these orcs were more adept at strategy and battle tactics, and soon formed into legions that hunted the various circles of the Abyss. The core of the army became the Riftforged Legionnaires, orcs who, when not fighting hordes of demons, trained relentlessly. Constant weapon drills with their meticulously maintained weapons ensured that their attacks were as instinctive as they were devastating, and their maneuvers on the battlefield would have been the envy of any commander. So well practiced, they might as well have been one entity. These legionnaires were soon organized into cohorts containing several regiments of warriors either equipped with hammers and shields to form near unbreakable shield walls, or great hammers to form units of shock troops. And as these orcs died and were reborn, for a simple death by combat would not destroy a soul in the Abyss, the orcs became stronger, cannier, and more skilled. And of these, the strongest, canniest, and most skilled quickly took on positions of leadership. These Stormbringers, as they began to be known, soon became the focus of their respective legions, a foci of energy that allowed the power of the storm to manifest in their kin, as long as one of them still drew breath. The power of the storm raged, a constant exposure that, although leaving them hideously scarred, increased their physical strength substantially. These Stormbringers soon became fiercely competitive and arrogant, ever ready to challenge their fellows in single combat in an effort to not only display their supremacy, but also gain Garkin's favor, a challenge that was rarely declined, for if a Stormbringer showed any weakness, they were quickly replaced, ensuring that the Riftforged legions are always led by the strongest and most merciless of warriors. Strangely enough, this competitiveness leads to discipline amongst the Orc ranks, for the Orcs know that their leader has proven that they deserve to be there, and thus they will follow his orders without question. While some Orcs displayed a tactical acumen and ferocity that promoted them to Stormbringers, others felt a deeper connection to their god, and became living embodiments of their patron's will. Through visions, they guide the Stormbringers in the persecution of Garkin's enemies, and their greater connection to the Nexus's energies allowed them to summon powerful storms that herald the arrival of their legion. Although they can lead, these Stormcallers tend to act apart, acting simply as messengers, advisors, and emissaries. Despite these important roles, Stormcallers tend to make other Orcs uneasy, their connection to their god making them less like the Riftforged Orcs with their innate discipline and loyalty to strength, and more like the manipulative and self-serving wicked one they serve. While Stormcallers showcase the power of their god through bombastic word and lightning strike, the Riftforgers are silent and somber Orcs who tend to speak solely through the hammering of metal on metal. They craft and maintain the armor and weapons of the legions, armor and weapons of exceptional quality, due to the knowledge bestowed upon them by the dark blacksmith Garkin. On the battlefield, they forge the unseen energies that surround the legions. Upon their floating Stormforged shrine, the Riftforger strikes ritual runes, harnessing the power of the storm to destroy the enemy, or bolster the legion's strength. Orcs were not the only creatures that were reforged by Garkin during this time. Others soon were able to feel his forceful touch. On our world, a Cyclops is a terrifying foe, not only large and immensely strong, but their singular eye has the gift of foresight, allowing them to see a few seconds into the future. Within the abyss, this gift is a curse, for it allows them to see the torture they will soon be subjected to, essentially forcing them to be tortured twice, driving most of them mad. Garkin plucked these unfortunate souls from the various circles, and infused them with the elemental energies of the Nexus. These Thunder Seers' gift of foresight and brutal strength, now enhanced with the power of the storm. When a troll is exposed to the Nexus's energies, they are engulfed by an indescribable pain. Most succumb to it, but those few that survive are filled with a rage-fueled frenzy. These few are gifted a pair of great falchions, which they use to control the lightning that permeates their bodies, and share the pain they constantly feel with their enemies. The fewest in number but individually the most powerful are the Storm Giants. The creation of these monsters is a truly monumental task, and when the Nexus was reburied at the end of the Halpi conflict, it became impossible to create more. Fortunately for Garkin, those few that were created are incredibly long-lived and very hard to kill. Over long campaigns across the Abyss, the Riftforged Orcs became well-organized fighting legions, with their own heraldry, traditions, and favorite strategies. Names like the Drake Slayers and Black Hammer becoming legends that struck fear in demons throughout the Abyss. And after 10 years of campaigning, which was only around 1 year on our world as time does not flow in the Abyss as it does here, Garkin deemed the Riftforged Orcs fit to carve a path of destruction across Mantica. Legion after legion poured from the Abyss with a drum-like beat of rumbling thunder announcing their arrival. However, the fickle powers of the Abyss would not make for smooth traveling, as it split the legions across the world as they made the transition. Some poured into Jagar, where the Abyssal Dwarves were warned of their coming and moved aside, leaving the Orcs to advance upon the Halpi Mountains, drawn to the now closed rift that had led to their creation. A few of these Halpi-bound legions became interested in the manticores that flew Tragar's harsh mountains. Capturing these fierce creatures, they earned the beast's respect through force of will and displays of strength, and soon formed teams of warriors known as Hellstrikers. They are tasked with swooping over the enemy ranks to cause targeted attacks, such as the tearing apart of enemy wizards, artillery teams, and commanders. before launching devastating charges into the rear of larger formations. Some legions found themselves farther north and struck across the frozen sea, fighting both the hostile environment and the hardy Varangur. And perhaps inspired by these worthy foes, they began to tame the tundra wolves themselves, making them a loyal and fierce strike force. But the strangest creature to join the ranks of the Riftforged Orcs as they came into our world was the Ambarox, strange insectoid beings that had previously lived beneath the earth, but burst forth from the ground wherever the legions appeared. They seemed drawn to the energies of the nexus surrounding the legionnaires, their bony protrusions able to channel the energies into their bodies and discharge it at foes with powerful blasts, a seemingly natural ability, which seems to show a connection to the nexus that is still not understood. Soon, legions were found everywhere, attacking the Brother Mark in Basileia, fighting ogres in the Mammoth Steppes, assaulting halfling villages on the Ardovakian Plain. Every nation across Mantica now knew of the arrival of this new force of devastation. But not just the civilized nations were being attacked by this new threat. Those orcs untouched by the Nexus's energies that had roamed the world since the God War also found themselves targeted, for the Riftforged Orcs viewed them as Garkin's failed experiment that needed to be shown their place. Although a few hordes were able to drive off the Riftforged due to ferocity and superiority of numbers, most succumbed. These hordes were either wiped out or joined the ranks of the Riftforged as auxiliaries, the latter being preferred, as the Riftforged Orcs often found themselves having difficulties replenishing their numbers. You see, class, the creation of a Riftforged Orc is a long and arduous process, which is why reinforcements tend to be gifted to those legions who have the most successes on the battlefield, not only to reward them for their victories, but also ensure Garkin's resources aren't wasted. As such, the Riftforged Orcs find it ideal to use their lesser brethren to soften up a target before attacking with the far more valuable Riftforged. Additionally, these lesser orcs know that if they prove themselves worthy, they might be chosen to join the Riftforged ranks, a hope that makes these orcs fight with extreme zeal, not realizing the terrible price for this ascension. For although their bodies will become much stronger, their minds will also change, their old life and any freedom they had previously enjoyed becoming just a dream, as they are remolded as an utterly loyal servant of the Wicked One Garkin. Well, class, I hope you enjoyed this lesson on the Riftforged Orcs, a new force of evil plaguing our world. With this lesson over, go home, lie upon your beds, and be thankful for the peace you currently enjoy, because one day, the Riftforged Orcs may make such a peace a long dead memory.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the Riftforged Orcs in the Kings of War universe. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, or at least familiar with it, these would essentially be the Uruk-hai of this universe. If you like it, please like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, press the little bell so you know where I post, etc. so the YouTube guys know I exist, and hopefully more people can see my content. And if you have a little extra cash and you're inclined, please send a little money my way to my Patreon or my Ko-fi account. The extra money gives me a chance to work on these stories I love. Anyway, thanks for listening/watching, and see you next time.